11 p.m. on the East Coast. We're back on the air, and we have news. An African American has broken the barrier as old as the Republic. You are looking at the 44th President of the United States.
And CNN can now project that Barack Obama, 47 years old, will become the president-elect of the United States.
Barack Obama will be the 44th President of the United States.
And we have breaking news, momentous news, really. CBS now estimates because of victories in California, Washington, Oregon, and Hawaii. CBS projects that Senator Barack Obama of Illinois will be the next president of the United States.
Tonight, because of what we did on this day, in this election, at this defining moment, change has come to America. We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
The way Bush has done it over the last 8 years, added $4 trillion by his lonesome. That's irresponsible. It's unpatriotic. We cannot and will not sustain deficits like these without end. That's why today I'm pledging to cut the deficit we inherited by half by the end of my first term in office. That's why today I'm pledging to cut the deficit we inherited by half by the end of my first term in office. We are paying the price for these deficits right now.
He's going to go down as being one of the worst presidents ever. President Barack needs to pay attention to Chicago. If he cannot pay attention to Chicago and the African American community, he needs to resign. The president setting aside all of these funds for immigrants and forsaken African American community and African American families, I think that's a disgrace. He saw this as a state senator, and he did not pay attention then.
Mr. President, we're asking for you. We got a problem here in Chicago. We will not stand by this here and keep letting this senseless killing and shooting happening in our community.
Are you happy with the way that Obama has been running the country? You a fan?
No.
No?
No, I really think he misinterpreted his mandate. He's doubled down on a lot of things. Well, going back to that education thing, one of the things, if I were the Adjustment Bureau, this idea that we're testing kids and we're tying teachers' salaries to how the kids are performing on tests. It's just, it's a really, that kind of mechanized thinking has nothing to do with higher order thinking. We're training them, we're not teaching them.
I'm against his silence on Iran. I'm against Obama's lie that he was going to protect Israel, and now as president, he arrogantly tells them what they can do and what they can't do, as he forgot that our only hope to defend us against Iran's nuclear buildup is Israel. And I'm against his very cunning ability to push things, to rush things through without anybody having a chance to look at them. His stimulus packages fail. slowly but surely we can see that Obama's policies are failing.
This poll is just one more round of bad news for the president. 22% say their vote for a House candidate will be a vote for the president, but 32% say it will be a vote against him. And 2 years ago, independent voters played a vital role in President Obama's victory, but this year, 47% of independent voters plan to vote Republican.
The White House is trying to say that this is not a referendum on Barack Obama. Of course this is a referendum on Barack Obama.
CNN is now ready to make a major projection. The Republicans will take control of the House of Representatives.
My administration will not rest until every American can find a job.
This is the worst economic recovery America has ever had. Unemployment soared over 8%, and it has stayed over 8% for 41 months in a row. It's 8.2 right now.
Obama pulls out U.S. troops. That gives the terrorists time to conspire, consolidate, and plan for filling the void. When the U.S. unilaterally pulls out, it creates a vacuum that necessarily will be filled. And that's what's happened in Iraq.
The protestations of Obama himself in his speech to the children in Northern Ireland about peace, when he said, "Those who choose the path of peace, I promise you that the United States of America will support you every step of the way. We will be the wind at your back." Now I ask you, is this person going for the Hypocrite of the Century award? And the reality is that by any serious examination, this man is a war criminal. He has just announced his decision to supply arms to the Syrian opposition, including the jihadists, fueling the destabilization of that region.
Barack Obama blamed his European allies for not stopping Libya from becoming a, quote, mess. He went as far as to call his allies free riders.
Very rare that a serving president of the US would criticize, particularly his allies, of course, in this way. He's criticizing here the UK and French leaders, and essentially what he's saying is that he blames them for Libya becoming what is called in polite diplomatic circles in the US a mess.
Islamic State is also active in the country, and a recent UN report claims the group strengthened its foothold in the region. The document adds the rise of extremists is likely to increase international interference and provoke even further polarization.
Yesterday, 4 of these extraordinary Americans were killed in an attack on our diplomatic post in Benghazi. Among those killed was our ambassador. The United States condemns in the strongest terms this outrageous and shocking attack.
Mr. President, this morning you went out of your way to avoid the use of the word terrorism in connection with the Libya attack.
Right.
Do you believe that this was a terrorist attack?
Well, it's too early to know exactly how this came about, what group was involved, but obviously it was an attack. The day after the attack, Governor, I stood in the Rose Garden and I told the American people and the world that we were going to find out exactly what happened, that this was an act of terror, and I also said that we're going to hunt down those who committed this crime.
I think it's interesting the president just said something which is that on the day after the attack he went to the Rose Garden and said that this was an act of terror.
That's what I said.
You said in the Rose Garden the day after the attack it was an act of terror. It was not a spontaneous demonstration. Is that what you're saying?
Please proceed, Governor.
I want to make sure we get that for the record, because it took the president 14 days before he called the attack in Benghazi an act of terror. The people who are having the hard time right now are middle-income Americans. Under the president's policies, middle-income Americans have been buried. They're just being crushed. Middle-income Americans have seen their income come down by $4,300. If you believe the disappointments of the last few years are a detour and not our destiny, then I'm asking for your vote.
We are projecting the battleground state of Ohio for President Barack Obama, which means you are looking at the President of the United States. Barack Obama has been reelected the 44th president.
The president's policies failing the black community or helping?
It's failing. It's failing.
What kind of support do you think that you're getting from the president, being from Chicago?
Well, right now, I haven't seen that much support from the president as far as these communities are concerned.
When asked who was the worst president since World War II, 33% said Obama.
President Obama has been rated the worst president since World War II. 33% said that President Obama is the worst president we have had.
And I'm not a king. I am the head of the executive branch of government. I'm required to follow the law, and that's what we've done. You know, I'm the President of the United States. I'm not the Emperor of the United States. My job is to execute laws that are passed. If, in fact, I could solve all these problems without passing laws in Congress, then I would do so.
He signed 2 executive orders as he...
There are actions that will help make our immigration system more fair and more just. And this morning, I began to take some of those actions. 4 years ago, I promised to end the war in Iraq. I did. You know, 4 years ago, I promised to end the war in Iraq, and I did. I told you we'd end the war in Iraq. We did.
President, do you have any second thoughts about pulling all ground troops out of Iraq?
Yeah, you know what I just find interesting is the degree to which this issue keeps on coming up, as if this was my decision.
And here's how the president responded when he was asked if he underestimated ISIS to this point.
No, we haven't. Where was the anger in that President Obama press conference? I'm in Paris. His words fell shamefully short of sentiment here. Wall Street Journal writes, if Mr. Obama fought the Islamic State with half the vigor in which he delivers moral lectures, he'd find that a much less fearful America would welcome far more refugees. The French declare as an act of war, the president calls a setback. And what Dianne Feinstein says keeps her up at night.
Yeah, no, that was...
The president says, I'm too busy for that.
I've never been more concerned. I read the intelligence faithfully. ISIL is not contained. ISIL is expanding. They've just put out a video saying it is their intent to attack this country. And I think we have to be prepared. There's only one way we're going to diminish them, and that is by taking them out, because they are growing. They are in more than a dozen countries now. They are sophisticated. They have apps to communicate on that cannot be pierced, even with a court order. So they have a kind of secret way of being able to conduct operations and operational planning. So we should take this very, very seriously.
CNN projects the Republicans will take control of the United States Senate. They will be in the majority in the next United States Senate.
This is a Republican wave. There is no other way to look at it. And though there was anti-incumbent sentiment out there, the Republican incumbents, Snyder in Michigan, Scott in Florida, Scott Walker in Wisconsin, they won.
He came into this night with all 435 seats in the House and 36 seats in the Senate up for grabs.
And it ends with the Republican sweep taking control of the House and the Senate.
Bob Schieffer, the mood of the country was a major factor tonight.
The mood of the country was nasty, and the country took most of it out on Barack Obama. This was a referendum on Barack Obama.
Obviously, Republicans had a good night. The American people sent a message. So to everyone who voted, I want you to know that I hear you.
President Obama releasing the Taliban Dream Team from Guantanamo Bay. Top advisors don't deny the 5 detainees traded for Bowe Bergdahl were not hardened Taliban killers, but all 5 detainees were active Taliban fighters and planners. 3 held leadership posts in the Taliban government.
What is your response to critics who say the $400 million in cash that you sent to Iran was a ransom payment? Was it really simply a pure coincidence that a sum that was a payment that was held up for almost 4 decades was suddenly sent at the exact same time that the American prisoners were released? And can you assure the American people that none of that money went to support terrorism?
Okay. It's been interesting to watch this story surface.
Iran should not be should not be a military nuclear power. I'm the Prime Minister of Israel.
When you walk out of the White House and 2 hours later, the White House press secretary and the State Department spokeswoman both slam Israel, talk about poison. How does that make you feel?
Well, it doesn't make me feel good.
We think it's a mistake for
the Prime Minister speak before Congress. Each time we see one of these mass shootings, our thoughts and prayers are not enough. How can you, with a straight face, make the argument that more guns will make us safer?
During this time, while you've been president, we are at the lowest murder rate in our country, all-time low of murders. We're at an all-time high of gun ownership.
Small Oregon town, united in grief, finds itself divided over a visit by the President of the United States. As President Obama arrives to meet with the victims' families privately, there is a public display of disdain for him.
He's here to promote anti-gun agenda, and standing on the bodies of dead children to do that is not okay.
The bad people will always have guns, they'll always do crimes, and the absolute proof of that is that community college was a gun-free zone.
As you stand in that room, you will be looking out over a room that arguably is as divided as it has ever been. Do you see that as a failure of your presidency? You came to town saying it was about hope and change. You were going to change the tone in Washington. You wanted to unite people, and they're not united. Is it a failure?
It's a regret.
Barack Obama said over the weekend that the biggest mistake of his presidency was the lack of planning for the aftermath of Muammar Gaddafi's ousting in Libya. Obama explained that his worst mistake was failing to plan for the day after what he thought was the right thing to do in intervening in Libya.